Welcome to the EOC 101, Intro to the Emergency Operations Center. Today's training is primarily meant to provide you with an overview of the functions of the EOC, teach you how each section interacts, familiarize you with the organization of the EOC, and finally provide you tools to help you be successful during EOC activations. Essentially, this course is meant to provide you as many tools as possible to carry out your position responsibilities. Upon completion of this course, you will have a basic knowledge of emergency management in the EOC, a basic knowledge regarding roles in the EOC, establish a basic comfort and competence in the EOC, and you'll begin to get to know others that you'll be working with in the EOC. So let's start with what is emergency management. Emergency management is responsible for coordinating and implementing strategies to prepare for, respond to, and recover from emergencies and disasters. Duties include developing emergency operations plan, conducting risk assessments, coordinating with response agencies and stakeholders, organizing training and exercises, managing resources during crises, and facilitating recovery efforts. They play a crucial role in ensuring effective communication, collaboration, and coordination among various entities to protect lives, property, and the environment during emergencies. So what is an Emergency Operations Center? Frequently, it's abbreviated as an EOC, but it's a space where a group of individuals and agencies come together to support and coordinate policy decisions, resource management, and response to disasters and emergencies beyond the scope of incident command. So those that are in the field responding to the incident. So here's a fact. The EOC is where uncomfortable personnel meet in an unaccustomed surrounding to play unfamiliar roles, making unpopular decisions in much too little time. So let's talk a little bit about what happens in the EOC. Wisconsin is a home rule state, which means that cities and villages have the authority to govern themselves. So during a disaster, the response starts and ends at the local level. This means that the county EOC coordinates with the various response agencies. We collect and disseminate information, and we manage resources that are requested through the EOC. The county EOC will also work with a policy group, which is made up of elected officials who can assist with executive decision-making and priority setting. Notice that this says coordination and not command. The EOC does not command the incident. We support the agencies in the field. This graphic here depicts the organization between municipal, county, and state emergency operations center. Based on local emergency operation plans, municipalities can activate their own EOCs or defer to the county EOC. The county EOC by statute coordinates with the state to provide situational awareness and request state resources needed to support the incident. Again, all emergencies and disasters start and end at the local levels. This diagram shows the progression of an EOC response following an incident. After an incident, the emergency management duty officer is notified of the incident, and they will determine the appropriate EOC level of activation, whether that be partial or full, and will send out the notifications currently via InformaCast. These messages can come at any time and will require a prompt response to determine additional staffing notifications. So just a little information about InformaCast. Emergency Management maintains and manages 4 lists that are based off of our EOC activation levels. We have our initial incident notification list. This is our management section, so emergency manager, county administrator, county board, corp counsel, public information officer. And we also notify our operations section, so like the sheriff's department and the FEP coordinator. And for logistics, we would be notifying the information systems director of the potential for an EOC activation. The next level is the partial activation level. So we would, again, activate the management section, and we'd also include, at this point, a safety officer. We'd activate our planning section, which includes our planning section coordinator, possibly our documentation unit leader, situation unit leader, our GIS department. For operations, we'd be adding in transportation, mass care, and then logistics, we'd be requesting a logistics section coordinator as well as a facilities unit leader. And finance would also be notified. For a virtual EOC activation, where maybe we're going to be hybrid, where some people are at home, some people are at the EOC, or maybe a complete virtual option, we would not require a facilities unit leader or a safety officer. And if we have a full activation, a level 1, we're going to request the activation of all designated personnel. So Eau Claire County has 4 activation levels. Level 4, not listed, that's our routine operations. Emergency management, we maintain a 24/7 duty officer line. A level 3 activation could be that EM is monitoring a situation and a physical EOC is not needed or warranted. The duty officer will send notifications to those personnel on that initial incident notification list to advise of the situation. A partial EOC activation, or level 2, requires more resources. This will typically cause the physical EOC to be activated, but based on the needs of the response, a virtual or hybrid model could be used. A full activation, or a level 1, will require the greatest number of resources. So you've received the text message and it's asked you to respond to the EOC. So now what? So first, let's talk about equipment. So we need you to bring with any laptops, any charging cables, computer mice, your headphones if we're going to be doing conference calls, any kind of equipment that you might need to do your job, bring those with. You're going to respond to the EOC, which is at the County Highway Shop, 5061 Highway 53 South. So for security and check-in, everybody that's assigned to the EOC will be issued a YCAMS badge. This has a dual purpose of being a quick identification for us to do checking in EOC personnel, but it also allows us to scan in personnel using a scanner and to sign in and out of the EOC. Otherwise, check-in could be done by paper, or we have a digital method of also doing it through a Microsoft Forms. This process will be determined by the EOC manager and the planning section coordinator when you arrive, and it will be communicated. We also have are implementing position task books. So these position task books are going to help us identify personnel who have completed various position related tasks, and this will allow us to help mentor and train additional personnel to grow our bench. Vests and seating, we are in the process of purchasing some colored vests that coordinate with the various sections and have the title of those units and coordinators and such. So we're hoping that that is going to help people be able to easily recognize and know who to quickly go find in the EOC when they have a request or a need. So those will be coming soon. And seating, when you arrive at the EOC, those vests or maybe table tents will show you where you can set up your equipment. We do have a go bag list available for EOC personnel. as a quick reminder of what to bring to an EOC, because again, we don't know how long you're going to be here, and you never know what you might need. So let's talk a little bit about the EOC structure. So there are 5 functions within the EOC: management, operations, planning, logs, and finance admin. This is a NIMS and ICS concept, so therefore it's mirrored at every level of response from local to state. The positions are dependent on the response level, so not all positions may be staffed. Management and planning will normally be activated. We always need somebody to coordinate and be in charge, and then we always need to maintain the documentation for the incident. So those 2 are typically going to be activated during any event. Now, the section coordinators are responsible for all the work in their section, even if their section isn't fully staffed or activated. So what that means is they have the responsibility of all duties unless they stand up unit leaders below them and delegate those responsibilities. So if we have the planning section stand up a documentation unit leader, they're now delegating the responsibilities of maintaining the documentation and all of the filing system. They're delegating that to the documentation unit leader, and they no longer have to do that themselves, but they now monitor and they're in charge of that new person underneath them. So this is just another way to think of the EOC. In this graphic, you see the introduction of the policy group and the consolidation of all of the management staff into one single box. So management is the deciders. The policy group are the individuals who need to make those tough calls. These individuals are usually our elected officials, city manager's office, police or fire chiefs, city council members, board of supervisors. They would also be the ones to waive things like city municipal codes, county ordinance, that allow things to happen that normally wouldn't happen on a day-to-day basis. They also have the decision to decide where assets are to be directed when there's not enough to go around to the disasters. So they help decide who gets priority. Now below that, you have the operations section, which are the doers. You have the planning section, which are the thinkers. Logistics are the getters. And your finance admins are the payers. So this chart just shows a little bit more information about each of the sections and kind of what their roles and responsibilities are. Key things to remember is the EOC manager develops an overall incident objective and strategy, and they're signing off and approving the EOC action plan. Operations, they're assisting with developing that strategy. They're identifying, assigning, and supervising resources to accomplish those objectives created by the EOC manager. Planning is working to provide status reports, managing that planning process, and they're producing the EOC action plan. Logistics plan is coordinating those ordering of those resources needed to meet those incident strategies. And then the finance admin is keeping track of costs. They're developing cost analysis. They're making sure that we stay within our financial limits, and they're developing contracts and paying for resources. So let's dive a little bit deeper into each of the sections. Let's start with the management section. As you can see here, you have the EOC manager, EOC coordinator, safety officer, public information officer, legal officer, liaison officer. You may notice a theme there. It's ending with officer. If you see the word officer, they are likely going to be in the management section. So one of the important things to note with the management section is that when these positions are stood up, that it helps delegate a lot of the tasks of the EOC manager to other people to help. So if these positions are not stood up, the EOC manager will need to handle all of these tasks and responsibilities that fall under the EOC management section. So it's important that if needed, we relieve the EOC manager of many of these activities because it will interfere with their primary responsibility of EOC management. So the roles and responsibilities within this section are managing the overall management and coordination of the emergency response and recovery operations, overseeing and managing the operations planning, logistics, and finance sections, coordinating and liaising with appropriate federal, state, and other local government agencies, as well as segments of the private sector and volunteer agencies. This team is also establishing priorities, resolving any conflicting demands for support, and they're going to be also working on that public information side by preparing and disseminating that emergency public information and disseminating essential data regarding the impacts and damage from the incident. Operations sections. Remember, these are our doers. The operations section positions will vary depending upon the need or the incident. Note that these positions may be activated at a one-person level, or they could be activated as a unit, a group, or a branch level, depending upon the level of activation, the work to be accomplished, and the numbers of personnel needed. The coordinators assigned to the functional branches of the EOC operations section receive incoming situation reports, department status situations, resource requests, and field intelligence. Incoming information will be routed to the appropriate EOC section. They will provide information from the EOC to local government EOCs, and in some cases, will also report information to the field incident command as appropriate to the jurisdiction. The planning section is quite frequently one of the first sections to be activated, and it's going to be one of the last ones that leave or are demobilized. They're an integral part of everything that the EOC does. They're responsible for everything from documenting the emergency response, collecting information and converting it into intelligence, and looking ahead to identify issues. They also drive the action planning process, which we'll talk about in future slides. So again, the planning section ensures the collection and distribution and display of critical information. They're also providing technical support services to the EOC sections, branches, and units. They're establishing the contact and coordinating with planning sections that may be activated in municipal and state EOCs. They are conducting those action planning meetings. They might be working to develop any demobilization plans. They're responsible for developing the planning documents and then also storing them for future review. They're helping provide us with a snapshot in time of what's going on in the event and the response. They're analyzing information to create intelligence, and that's information that's relative to the response. And they're doing that with the collection of data and documentation. They're analyzing and displaying information in various different ways, whether that be dashboards or boards within the EOC. And then they're also focusing on that long-range planning. So let's take a moment to talk a little bit about our ever-important logistics section, our getters. So as you can see here, the logistics section can get quite large. But again, just remember, we're only going to stand up what we need. So if we have a EOC activation, we're going to definitely going to be standing up our comms and IT unit. So that is our internal communications and our technology within the EOC. So we want to make sure that we can communicate with each other and that all of our technology that we're bringing into the EOC is working. So we want to stand that up. We're also going to stand up our facilities unit because we want to make sure our facility is set, make sure bathrooms are working, make sure water is working, make sure we have power is the big thing. We want to make sure all of that is set up. Do we need to bring in more tables, more chairs? That's going to be the facilities unit. If we're looking at something long term, we're definitely going to want to feed our people that we're bringing in, So we want to have our food unit. They're going to help bring in and make sure that we have food and make sure that food is meeting the requirement. We want to make sure we're meeting health codes and all that kind of fun stuff too. The other units, we're going to stand up as needed. Ground support unit, do we need to transport resources out to the field? Like if we get a whole shipment into the EOC, now do we have to transport it out? Or are we going out into the field? Do we have, vehicles that we need to support, making sure that our vehicles are fueled up, having maps and stuff like that. They're going to handle all the transportation piece of that. Personnel unit, that's going to be helping track and ordering in resources for personnel that we might still need. Our supply and procurement unit, if we're standing that up, that person is making sure that all of those supplies are being ordered and we're tracking them, handling all of that. Now, on very large incidents, we may have an influx of people that come out of the woodworks that want to help. So we might have to stand up a volunteer coordination unit. And with that, there might be lots of donations. Like people want to donate money or they want to donate physical, tangible, supplies. We need somebody to manage that as well. So that's when we would stand up those. But again, it's going to be on a case-by-case basis based on the incident. All right, let's pull out that checkbook. Let's talk about the finance admin section. So this section's responsibilities is to provide financial support and coordination. So this section is going to manage the financial systems necessary to keep the county functioning properly during a disaster and emergency. That may include payroll, payment of goods and services, revenue collection, claim processing, cost recovery documentation, recording financial transactions. And then we're also this unit's going to be ensuring that all of the financial records are being preserved for future use. So if the county or a municipality qualify for state or federal reimbursement, we then have the documentation to support that and easily file that application. All right, let's talk a little bit about action planning. So this diagram here you may recognize, this is what's called the planning P. This is what drives the action planning process. The final deliverable, once the planning P has been completed, that first full cycle, you end up with an EOC action plan, which is a printed document that is produced for each operational period and approved by the EOC manager. That EOC action plan will describe the planned activities for the Emergency Operations Center for that set period, outlines what the EOC's overall coordination role is, and it gives answers for the following questions of who, what, when, and where. So the EOC action plan, or what's known as the EAP, this is different from an incident action plan, okay, an IAP. The incident action plan is usually produced at the field level, and they're looking at more of the tactical and immediate affected area. Whereas an EAP, we're trying to develop with this an overall strategy, and we're trying to prioritize how the EOC is going to support the field. So for example, a field IAP may include tactics on putting out a fire, preserving the scene of an arson fire, while an EAP will focus on the strategy of notifying the public, possibly relocating and evacuating residents to the next to the affected area, providing care or shelter for affected families, that kind of thing. So we're looking at more of the strategic. How do we support what they're doing in the field? Congratulations on completing EOC 101. I hope that this gave you a basic understanding and knowledge of the role of the Emergency Operations Center and what our role is to support and coordinate the response of those agencies in the field. Next steps. I'm going to have you complete the EOC 101 quiz, short 10-question quiz, no trick questions, I promise, just trying to gauge how well we talked about some of these topics. Next, there's going to be position-specific trainings. So this breaks down each of those sections, so management, planning, ops, logistics, and finance. It's going to break down those trainings, those sections even further. It's going to go into more of those roles, responsibilities. It's going to go into the ICS forms. So what forms do you need to fill out? What are you responsible for? We're going to do a deep dive into that and some of the other resources that we have available. In addition, watch our calendar for emergency management. We will be listing any upcoming EOC or ICS training. We'll also include exercises, so watch your emails for that. We're planning on at least once every fall, winter time, we're going to do an EOC exercise. We want to make sure that we're prepared for any incident at any time. So we're going to be doing that. So watch our calendars for that information. Well, everybody, that's all I have for you today. I hope that this training was informative and gave you some valuable information. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, any feedback, please do email us at emergency.management@eauclaircounty.gov. Otherwise, I would hope to see you at some upcoming training or exercises. Everybody have a good day.